are unable to join us today. And as I say, if you've got any questions, please either store them up to the end or put them onto the chat box as we go through it. So, another week since we last obviously all met. Lots happened in the last week. I think it's fair to say that Britain's reputation for handling of the corona epidemic has taken another global pasting around the world in newspapers and periodicals. And there certainly was a fair amount of confusion following Boris's announcement on Sunday night. To some extent on Monday and yesterday, we've seen a series of further announcements and clarifications, which obviously really didn't help out all those people who turned up for work on Monday. But we're now getting obviously more detailed guidelines as we all return to work. I say all, I know obviously a number of us obviously are continuing to work from home, and we'll be talking a little bit about the implications surrounding returning to work later on. We saw yesterday afternoon the Chancellor making an announcement about the extension of the coronavirus wage subsidy scheme for workers until the end of October. I think that was a massive relief from everyone, not least of which it will mean that we don't see a massive increase in the number of unemployed at the end of June. With 7.5 million workers already registered for that particular scheme, the amount of money it's likely to cost the Chancellor and all of us is something in the region of £80 billion, which is about half the cost of running the NHS. With schools obviously looking to reopen for our youngest of children, extensions to our ability to exercise and meet with a single friend, not too sure what that means about our married ones. With key workers and industries returning, there is a danger that we may well be going too far and too quickly. But we'll have the opportunity to comment on that today. And clearly I'm interested in your views as to what you are doing for your businesses. This week, in the midst of all this turmoil, we're taking some time out to think about what we can do for our fellow man, woman and child. And I'm really pleased to welcome today 5 presenters. Most of the people on this call don't obviously have to return to work, but obviously there are a number of our people whose life really is not likely to change for the better in the very near future. And for that reason, I'm really pleased to welcome today the leading charity, the Leonard Cheshire charity. We'll obviously have an appeal and an opportunity to basically help them through our creativity rather than our cash and our little black books. And on the creative front, we welcome Jonathan Sands OBE along today, who'll be discussing a new global challenge that he has created. And he's now working 24/7 on How I See Tomorrow, an initiative that invites children across the world to share their thoughts on COVID-19 in a creative and illustrative way. And finally, we'll get some practical advice from Pimento HR experts at Reality HR, who are going to attempt to demystify this week's announcements and give us some practical advice on what we can be doing as employers and also as employees. So, first off, I'm very pleased to welcome both Naomi and also Leslie from the Leonard Cheshire. Naomi Edler is the Commercial Development Director at Leonard Cheshire. She's spent 20 years in both the private and the third sectors, most notably as Head of Business Development and Commercial Activities at the Prince's Trust. Prior to that, she was Commercial Director at Psycho Entertainment. So effectively, she swapped Simon Cowell for the Prince of Wales. I don't know whether that was a fair swap or not. She's been at the Leonard Cheshire for 3 years, during which time she's rebranded the organisation from the inside out. And after a year out on maternity leave, she is now working with Davey to reposition the charity and build essential partnerships and like-minded organisations. So it's good to welcome her. And she'll be joined in this short presentation by Davey. Many of you obviously know Leslie well. Leslie has been both a client and a member of Pimento in the past. She's now, as I say, at the Leonard Cheshire. She joined in March. Excellent timing on her part. And she comes from a consumer's goods background, which she's been involved in for over 20 years, working with global brands like Coke, Unilever, Diageo, Britvic, Barclaycard, IHG, and Nightimber, primarily working on the marketing and communication side and strengthening their businesses. So welcome, ladies. It's great to have you both with us today. And I'll unmute you both now. I think, Naomi, you want to be able to share your screen with everybody. Thank you for joining us. The stage is yours, as it were.
Thanks, Stephen. Leslie, you were going to share your screen, weren't you?
Here we go.
There we go. So thanks ever so much, everyone, for having us today. As Stephen said, I'm Naomi Edler. I'm going to introduce you to the world of Leonard Cheshire and then ask for your help. You don't mind? Thanks, Leslie.
Oh, doesn't seem to want to move forward. Oh, sorry. There.
That's okay. So I thought I'd just set the scene with some disability facts for you. So almost 14 million people in the UK today are disabled. 1 in 5 of us will become disabled in our lifetime. The value of the purple pound is worth a whopping £250 billion to the UK economy. Disabled people are the fastest growing minority group and, as I would say, the last bastion of discrimination. So a bit about us. We are an incredibly underknown charity. We are huge in the work that we do, but no one has ever heard of us, generally speaking. So we were founded in 1948 by Leonard Cheshire, who is a decorated RAF pilot. He brought, after the war, a terminally ill man into his home, and we grew from there, and we'll show you a film a little later, which tells you a bit more about that. Today, we support individuals to live, learn, and work as independently as they choose, whatever their ability. We run residential care homes in the UK, and we deliver education and employment programs in the UK and Africa and Asia. Last financial year, we directly supported 62,000 disabled people across the globe. We reached over 1.3 million people through our programs in influencing and raising awareness. And we did that through the work of 9,000 volunteers and our dedicated staff of 5,000. So I wanted to introduce you just to a couple of people that have been supported by us in the recent past. This is George. George lives in the UK. He's got cerebral palsy, and he describes himself as shy, with little opportunity to make friends or develop the skills he needs to get a job. So he joined us on one of our national community volunteering programs and basically turned his life around. He got a City and Guilds qualification and was able to make the friends he wanted. He says, before joining Can Do, I was really lonely, and although I knew my family were there for me, I wanted friends. Now I have a circle of friends, and when I attend Can Do and everyone shouts out, "Hi George," it makes me really happy. And this is Anthony. Anthony is 36. He lives in Uganda. He's had a hearing impairment, his whole life, and he lives there with his wife and his daughter. Because of his disability, he struggled at school, he became isolated, and he couldn't get a job because of that or provide for his family ultimately. So through our Inclusive Livelihoods program, he received what he needed essentially to become a trained carpenter. He says now, as this training has changed my life, I'm able to support my whole family now, not only my wife and children, but my mother, nieces and nephews too. Importantly for him, the community respect me and people call me Mr. Moima, unlike before. So we have ambitious goals. We need to change our positioning. We want to grow our community support to helping 100,000 individuals year on year. We want to become the international pan disability of choice. We need to double our fundraising income in order to do that to 35 million a year. We need to triple the proportion of disabled people we employ to 10% and quadruple our volunteer base. That would be to 12,000 people. Thanks, Leslie. So what have we been doing to address the impact that coronavirus has had on our people? So we have in the UK 3,000 high acuity need people at 120 residential services cared for by 4,000 support workers. They all need to be protected. So we're spending upwards of £400,000 a month doing that. In order to meet the shortfall, we had launched very hastily a PPE appeal to the general public, and this is what we'll be sharing with you just now. So Leslie, there's no volume on mine.
There's no volume. Sorry, did you say there's no volume?
No volume. Stephen, are you getting volume? No.
So how do I do the volume?
If you share, when you shared it initially,
Yeah.
at the bottom there's under an option there is to share computer audio. When you say share screen,
Okay.
at the very bottom of the screen, if you hover your
Yeah, so there's a mute button, audio settings, it's maximum. Sorry. Let's try again. See if that works.
No worries. I'll just talk you through. You can see for yourself, it's an appeal that demonstrates the hard work that the frontline staff do on a day-to-day basis around the people that they care for. And it ends with a frame asking people to donate. And that's been shared millions of times now. So we were really pleased to be able to get some really good pro bono space. We managed to get upwards of 1,800 insertions across the Sky portfolio, amongst others. We've had millions of impressions through paid social. It's really getting traction. We've managed to raise over £180,000 to date, which Leonard Cheshire has never been able to do with the consumer audience before. So we're really happy with how it's going, but we need more, quite substantially more. So you may not have heard of Leonard Cheshire. Lots of people haven't, and this is what we are faced with as a challenge at the moment. On a particular third sector index, we are number 94. So that's beneath, if I give you some context, WaterAid are at number 7, Age UK at number 22, Donkey Sanctuary at number 33. The majority of our donors are over 65 with a female skew. And they are basically with us because they knew of Leonard Cheshire and his legacy. Juxtaposed with all of that is the fact that our key message of supporting disabled people in their journey to independence should be highly motivational for a very much younger audience, but our awareness is incredibly low there. We need a step change. We need to build Leonard Cheshire's credentials with a much wider audience to ensure essentially our sustainability for the future. Over to you, Leslie.
Yeah, so I wanted to share 2 of our key objectives for 2020 today. The first one is, as Naomi said, we don't have any brand awareness. The brand proposition exists but has not been shared widely. So what we have to do is to strengthen that proposition, to create a clear articulation of what we do and what we stand for and how we really impact people's lives, because Leonard Cheshire at the moment is an empty vessel and we need to really strengthen that proposition. The second objective here is that we are seeking a commercial partnership to engage with a wider population to really raise awareness and individual and corporate funds as well. So today we are looking for help from Pimento East to identify a commercial partner with a large organization or a brand to deliver reach and engagement in a meaningful, mutually beneficial relationship as we build it and as we go forward. So the examples I brought along, the first one is with Andrax and WaterAid, and you're probably aware that today 2 billion people, which is 1 in 4, still don't have a decent toilet of their own. And the campaign is called Toilets Change Lives, and it is all about transforming people's lives by constructing new or renovating existing public toilets in Bangladesh. So Andrex is promising to donate £1 on your behalf to help build safe sanitary toilets for everyone. And you will have seen this campaign online, which is beautifully done with WaterAid and the story of a little girl in Bangladesh with beautiful animated color blue, and the way that it's being aired at the moment. So clearly for them, it is creating a reach of millions of impressions. Fundraising to date has been 480,000, and clearly building an enormous amount of brand equity for both brands, but also delivering a new level of engagement and purpose for Andrex. The next example is Cadbury Milk and Age UK. Again, another campaign which is on air at the moment, and 1.4 million older people struggle with loneliness, and as much as 225,000 go a whole week without speaking to anyone, which is very sad indeed. So Cadbury's, who has a huge history in philanthropy and being linked to social causes, has created this campaign which is called Donate Your Words, and it's all about reaching out to older people in the community for a friendly chat to help brighten their day. And they also launched a coronavirus take on that same campaign, which is absolutely amazing. So Cadbury has removed the logo from its dairy milk bars, and you can see here on the right, and is donating 30p of each bar to be sold for, to be given to Age UK. Again, they're getting a huge amount of reach, fundraising, and building equity for both brands in a very, very positive way. So what we are looking for, and the real opportunities are on two levels. So for corporate, an association with Leonard Cheshire will demonstrate a real commitment to diversity and supporting vulnerable people in a really, really meaningful way. It will also help engage employees and motivate them because of the cause, and also support their CSR goals, which a lot of organizations are doing in a very visible way. But importantly, it will offer organizations access to specialized training and consultancy. And what we do incredibly well, and part of one of core competencies of Leonard Cheshire, is this disability awareness training, which really, really supports inclusion, diversity, and makes a difference for people's lives in terms of them joining society and being welcomed as an employee. And for the brand, we can offer a motivational purpose, and brands, as you well know, are crazy about having clear purpose attached to them. Align the Leonard Cheshire values, which are very accessible and very warm, positive, proud, pioneering, in an ownable, distinctive campaign that really helps drive brand choice. And what it also does is access to a whole new generation of influencers who have an opinion about disability, and create a real fresh narrative with their target audiences. And then, because Leonard Cheshire is international, we also offer this international dimension and international messaging that can be adapted depending on the type of brand or corporation we get involved with. So what it will do for Leonard Cheshire, it will raise our profile, will get us the desperate reach that we need, will deepen the involvement, will convert consumers, and make Leonard Cheshire one of the most popular and respected brands in the UK. It will also support disabled people in new ways through those partnership programs with the employers. We can then upskill people, and we can create more confidence and give them experience. It will help raise funds for the 62,000 beneficiaries we have today, as well as looking at the future as we aim to have 100,000 people on a yearly basis that we want to support as we go forward. So what we are looking for from you today is the help to identify a commercial partner with a large organization or a brand to help deliver the reach and the engagement, a meaningful, mutually beneficial relationship. So specifically, we are looking for an introduction to a potential partner, and then help with developing and implementing the program of that partnership. Ideally, it would be a partner who has a genuine interest in social issues and has an inclusive mindset. So affinity is absolutely key. A partner who is concerned about disabled people, their integration and development in the society, and the ability to move quickly as well. So we are looking at launching it this year and have an activation in 2020. So what I wanted to show you now is our fantastic film, but the volume isn't working. So if somebody can coach me through how to get the volume out, I'll be very happy to do it, because it's a short film that will bring it all to life to you. So is there anyone who can coach me how to do this?
I think you have to go into advanced sharing options. So if you go down to the bottom of the screen where you've got share screen, so not on your PC, but onto the actual Zoom settings, yeah? You've got the green button, share screen?
Yes.
Okay, and then next to that, I think you've got a little arrow up. You've got your cursor in the wrong place. Go to the bottom.
Can you share?
You need to go to the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom, Leslie.
Bottom?
Yeah, so at the bottom here where you've got all the...
icons?
Yeah, and it says share screen. Next to that, there's a little arrow.
Yeah.
Push that. And you see advanced, no, wrong one. Next to share screen, there's a little arrow up. Push advanced sharing options.
No.
No.
Sorry, just give me one more minute. I will find it.
It's not on your screen.
I know. So is it here? Is it here at the bottom?
Along the bottom, yeah. So it says share screen. There's a little arrow up next to it. Yeah. Come down. This is like burning the bolt for those that remember it. Turn right, go right bit more. Keep going. So you come to share screen. Yep.
No, there is no share screen.
Okay. Never mind. We'll have to paraphrase it. There's Leonard. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't work without the sound. So I'm really sorry. I don't know what.
Don't worry. Send it to us afterwards, and we'll share it with the group.
I might be able to share it. I can share it.
Go on, off you go.
I'm going to have to try and...
Leslie takes the sharing down off.
Yeah.
Take it to slide off and then...
Share computer sound.
Ah, there you go.
And I could see for the first time that...
Is it working? Apologies.
Well, as the war was coming to an end, and I could see for the first time that it looked as if I was going to survive, I was dominated by the thought, I'm one of the fortunate ones. And I thought, I've got a kind of duty to those who didn't survive, not just to go back and earn my living and have a nice life, but somehow to get involved in the struggle to help build, I don't know how to put it, a better peace, a better world. When the telephone rang, and it was a local hospital to say that Arthur Dykes was dying of cancer. They couldn't keep him, but I'd please come and find somewhere else for him to go. I thought, that's easy. I couldn't find anywhere. So I suddenly thought, Arthur, would you like to come back to Lee Court? I knew he wouldn't, but I thought, at least I'm offering something. So he startled me by saying, I'd love to. But before he died, he said, Len, I don't think I've come here just for myself. So that opened for me the door onto this whole new world. To me, it's individuals that change the world. It's not governments. I've seen it time and time again. One man who stands up against the stream, who sets an example.
70 years later, the Leonard Cheshire charity continues to support individuals to live, learn, and work as independently as they choose. Group Captain Leonard Cheshire, VC, OM, DSO, DFC, 7th of September, 1917 to 31st of July, 1992.
That's it. We got there in the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you, Naomi. We will have lots of questions, I'm sure, for you, but we're going to move on rapidly to Jonathan, and we'll come back to questions after our final presentation, if that's okay. Very quick introduction of Jonathan, those who don't know him. I think most of you probably do. He's chairman of Elmwood, a brand design consultancy that's renowned for a number of things, not least of which winning more DBA Design Effectiveness Awards than any other. In 1989, Jonathan led a management buyout of Elmwood at the tender age of 28, so you can work out how old he is now. His work now takes him all over the world for clients like GSK, Heineken, Danone, Coles and M&S, to name but a few. Originally, they were based in a studio in Leeds. They still are, but they also have offices around the world now in London, Melbourne, New York and Singapore. He's very much an industry commentator and speaker. Many of you may have seen him speak before. As well as all those design awards, he's also been fortunate, was created a culture that recognises that Elmwood is one of the top places to work. They've regularly appeared in the Times top 100 best companies to work for. And today he's going to talk to us a little about a global initiative that he and his studio in Leeds created just prior to the lockdown, and it's going gangbusters on a global stage. And we've already managed to engage a number of Pimento members, not least of which including Dr. Rachel Laws, who's on today's call, Dr. Rebecca Daniels, our own Andy Clark, and the team at both Circle and Proco. So, Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us. I will unmute you now, sir, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Oh, good morning, everybody. Now then, I need to share my screen. Hopefully you can see that. Can everybody see that? Yep, great. Okay, so I'll try and be quick because if any of you are like me, these home working days are ridiculously long and tiring. I was saying before the call started to a few of our fellow presenters that my day normally starts at my study here at home before 7 and normally finishes at 9 with a little break to watch Pointless at 5:15. And so that's my typical day. And before we broke for home working, 8 weeks ago now, a group of us got together and said, what the hell are we going to do when we're all at home, and how are we going to stay in touch with clients and so on? And a bit like the previous presentation and Leonard Cheshire coming back from the Second World War, somebody said it is a bit like the Second World War when children were sent away to the countryside and away from their loved ones. And in a way, although their children are still with their parents, they're still away from their grandparents and their friends. And so there's a similarity, but the difference here is, unlike nations against nations, this is actually nations coming together against a common foe, and that's a real difference. And in 30 or 40 years' time, we felt that people will look back on this moment a bit like the Second World War or any other seminal moment in history and think, you know, this is a historic moment and we really ought to capture it. And so we came up with this idea about capturing through the eyes of children what it was like being locked in. And again, I'm sure like everybody else, some of these lockdown days have stimulated ideas around how the future will be better in many ways, and learnings around how we use technology and so on. So for instance, in Elmwood, we've proven that we can work at home, and I'm sure everybody else is the same. And so going forward, whilst we miss human interaction, we don't necessarily need to be in the studio all of the time. So one of the things we might do when we go back is have a 3-day week where we're in the studio all together Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but actually dictate working from home on a Monday and a Friday to get things done. Whether we end up doing that, we'll wait and see. But we did want to capture what the learnings were through the eyes of children, and then somebody said, well, more than that, we want to actually get their views on how they would like to see the world differently in the future. And because there was a sense of guilt in the studio that our generation has actually screwed up the world. You know, we've got wars going on, we've got religious conflict, we've got prejudice, we've got global warming, we've got plastic in the ocean. And really, maybe this is our moment to give some sort of legacy back, to listen to children and think about how their desires for the future might come to life in a better way. So that was why the project was called How I See Tomorrow. So we've opened a gallery yesterday. The website went live a week ago, and we started capturing images yesterday. So the first images are now online. And there's a gallery for today and a gallery for tomorrow. But as well as having the online gallery, what I've been doing is reaching out to museums around the world. And I think I've got 5 now, pretty much locked in. None of them are actually confirmed. And this is my one frustration at the moment, is that they've got to get trustee approval and director's approval. But the Museum of Contemporary Art in Sydney has said yes. They were the first one to say yes. Although again, not actually signed a document as yet, so it's not for public consumption. And that's an amazing gallery. They've even shown me the room which overlooks the Sydney Opera House, which is fantastic. The National Museum of Singapore, I've literally just seen an email pop into my inbox from them this morning as I've been on this call. I was talking at midnight last night to the Queen's Museum in New York, who are really excited about it because that's the epicenter of the virus in New York, is in Queens, and they see this as an opportunity to change the landscape or change the lens on the dialogue and the narrative that's going on, because they say the whole community is in mourning at the moment. And then I'm talking to a couple of places in London and somewhere in France. So we've got 5. And within the week that this site has been live, we've had 24 different nations look at the website. So from New Zealand to the US, from Colombia to the United Arab Emirates, South Africa, all over Europe, China, India. It's been phenomenal, really. And that's without any real PR support, because Circle, who Stephen mentioned, have offered some help, and we're starting to engage with them. And so I also say thank you to Rachel and Rebecca, who are on this call, and Andy and others who've also offered support. But the real goal here, and the real opportunity for Pimento members, I didn't realize that this could be a potential Trojan horse for us all, because what we really wanted to do is, at the galleries, at the end of the show, and the shows we're thinking should be early next year, is to have an event with opinion formers, policymakers and business people to look at the artworks and see how we could potentially bring some of these ideas to life. And so obviously it's a great networking event, if nothing else, when you get all of these people in a room. So anybody who wants to support this will make sure they're on the invite list for those events. I just sort of scroll down because, as I say, this is the way it works. I've explained what this project is all about, and it's about what people are doing today, but more than that, what it's going to be like in the future. And so there's a simple upload feature, and the gallery literally opened yesterday with the first submission. So you go onto the gallery. So this is Teddy, who's a 6-year-old from the UK, and it tells you a little bit about what his views are today. So this is him in all of his rooms, so playing with his toys, sleeping, doing exercise, helping or learning to cook. But so far, this is the one that's inspired me the most, which I loved this. So this is from Vivian in Australia, and everyone in the world holding hands and closing their eyes and wishing this virus would go away. And when I saw this, you can tell I'm sort of choking up a little bit, because it just felt so lovely. And what it really said to me is that children are born without prejudice of creed or colour. And a bit like the way we clap for the NHS at 8 o'clock on a Thursday, or the way the rainbow has gone around the world, you know, if there was one thing that I'd like to bring to life already, it's this: how could we create a hand share around the world? It just feels like such a great symbol. And it's actually, for me, the way the world could be and should be, of people living as one rather than in an adversarial relationship. So, so in terms of, so that in a nutshell is the project. It's capturing visions of today, capturing desires for tomorrow, but then having these events around the world where we get business people, opinion formers, policymakers into the room to say, okay, how can we bring this to life? Now, Hobbycraft in the UK, I mentioned this was a Trojan horse. It's an opportunity to engage clients as well in an event like this. So Hobbycraft are not an Elmwood client. I know the marketing director, but they're not a client. And they've offered to provide weekly prizes for the most inspiring and uplifting artworks. And so, you know, obviously Hobbycraft will be there. We're talking to, or we're trying to talk to Lego at the moment, and other people who might be interested in supporting this event. So in terms of what I would like some help on, if there is any help available, it's, you know, if there's anybody else, a bit like the Leonard Cheshire plea, is, are there any corporates who might be interested in supporting this, either as a sponsor in whether it be prizes, or a sponsor of one of the drinks events at one of the museums? We're interested in, next is getting a celebrity to support this. So I'm reaching out to a few. I've worked with Anthony Gormley many years ago, so I'm trying to dig out where his email address is. I seem to have lost it, but I'm sure I'll find it, to see if he might like to be a judge of the overall best in show. So if anybody's got any ideas, any ins to Grayson Perry, for instance, or Noel Fielding, or anybody like that, that would be really interesting. And of course, we do want to try and find a broadcast partner, if possible, to sort of do a little update on some of these images. And really, that's it. It's an opportunity for everybody to engage. I don't want this to be seen as an Elmwood project or a Jonathan project. If you see at the bottom, our initial sponsors are all highlighted equally, including Pimento, and there's a link to everybody's website. So the circle identity will go on there as well, and any other Pimento agencies who are supporting us in some way. And it's very much a moving target. It's quite a dynamic thing we're in at the moment, and that's why I say it's a bit frustrating that I have to wait for trustee approval on things. But overall, it's now become all-consuming. It is my day job, because I also want to protect the rest of my Elmwood team from this, because otherwise the whole of Elmwood will be spending their time doing this, and I need them to be earning fees like everybody else at the moment. So I'm sort of doing this solo. Instead of Hans solo, it's Sands solo at the moment. But so any help, much appreciated. And if there's one thing everybody could do, I would hope easily, is share the website on your own networks and get any kids that you know, family, friends, to enter their submission, because of course they could win a Hobbycraft prize. And I think, Stephen, that's a quick canter through the project. I think I've said everything, and thank you for any help that you may be able to offer.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jonathan. We've got lots of questions and lots of interest from members popping up in the questionnaires at the moment. So we'll come back to that, as I say, after the next speaker. But thank you very much for giving, as you say, a canter through what is, I think, a brilliant initiative, and something that we can all find a way to get involved in. Obviously, changing gear slightly now, and talk a little bit about what has happened since Sunday and the impacts on our businesses, and more importantly, on our people. Sally Ann Hall Jones, who's the CEO of Reality HR, and her Sam Dow, I believe, is also on the line. And together they're going to give us some insight as to what it all means. Thank you very much indeed, Sally Ann. Let me unmute you there. Oh, think we're both doing it at the same time. There you go.
There we go. Thank you, Stephen. It's actually Nicola joining us. We had a late change of companion due to being incredibly busy because of all the changes announced this week. So thank you ever so much for including us. I think this is the third time we've been invited to a Pimento call. So we do love coming along and sharing our thoughts with you. Reality HR has been going for 18 years, so we specialise in supporting SMEs, and we've seen an absolutely unprecedented time over the last few weeks. And so really we've been trying very hard to utilise our knowledge and experience of all that support to SMEs, about 140 that we work with, to really try and just help with some of the navigation and interpretation of what all this means for businesses with employees, which is most businesses. So all I'll do really today is just give you a very short view of some of the areas to think about, which is really based on the areas of key concern and focus that are coming through from our clients. Happy to chat through and take any questions, but I would suggest for the purposes of time, we maybe take questions offline. So Nicola and I'll be really happy to pick up any questions individually later. Nicola will probably interject if I get anything wrong or miss bits, which is highly likely to happen. And I would also say that, you know, we don't have all the answers. One of the things that we've all learned over the past few weeks is that the challenges from a people perspective are throwing up more questions than answers, and we've had to very much work with, at times, very limited information and try and help with the interpretation. There are lots of grey areas, in short, and we still have a huge number, even though we had further clarity. So Sunday wasn't really that lift off from lockdown that the press were telling us may be the case the week before. And the message that we had from Boris was very, I would say, cautious, conditional, and for many quite confusing. As Stephen said, we have had further clarity with various announcements, and the update on the coronavirus job retention scheme that we had from the Chancellor yesterday was very positive news, albeit with a sting in the tail, how we're going to pay for it. However, despite lots of published guidelines over the last 72 hours, there are still many questions for businesses as we find our way through these recent changes into even more uncharted territory. And we need to remember, despite all the hype in the media this morning, that the fundamental instruction for all of us is unchanged, and that's those who can work from home should continue to do so. And I fear we're going to lose that in the excitement of a change from the last 8 weeks. I know they were showing traffic around London this morning, which was significant in comparison to what we have seen over the last few weeks. So it's very clear that each organisation is different and will need to apply the guidance carefully. And my take very much is that the onus of responsibility is clearly shifting to the business and the employer, as opposed to the very, very rigid direction from the government. The government guidelines state, and I'm just going to quote this for you, each business will need to translate the guidance into the specific actions it needs to take depending on the nature of the business, including the size and type of business. Sorry, I've just got a pop-up I need to remove. There we go. Size and type of business, how it's organised, managed and regulated. And I think this is where the challenge is for business and the shades of grey that I referred to earlier. I think it's also very important that we use terms like return to work cautiously. You know, we are still living with coronavirus, and I think we can safely say will be for some time. And we need to treat it as a hazard in the workplace that needs to be very carefully managed. So, what have we picked up from our clients? Many things over the last few weeks. So these are just some of the current themes. So we had great uncertainty, first of all, about the furlough scheme. Some of that was alleviated yesterday, but obviously that is raising more questions in terms of what does it look like once we get to post-July and we can move to part-time furloughing. Then we've got businesses starting to give thought to returning to work, so who should? Thinking about things like how many employees do you need back at first, and then the overlay of the part-time option from August. And then, of course, we get into the realms of who wants to come back and who doesn't want to come back. And we're starting to see our clients reporting to us an anxiety. So people feeling very anxious about any thought of returning to the workplace. what that means for them. And we've also got a proportion here reporting, you've probably come across this phrase, people who are addicted to furlough, so they actually quite like it. And have no desire to return to the workplace. It does, I hate to say this, but there are certain benefits in terms of work-life balance, time with the family, a slower pace and all those kind of things. And there are some people who are actually, for many reasons, really quite enjoying the experience. We then obviously have lots of people thinking about childcare and caring responsibilities. So we know that from the 1st of June, in all likelihood, year 1, year 6, I think I've got that right, are going to be returning to school in some form or other. That will present still potentially some challenges around childcare, so the chances are they won't be in for the normal set of hours. And then of course we've got other employees who have not got that provision for their children, so they still have those childcare caring responsibilities to juggle. Workplaces, employers need to continue to think about the vulnerable, those who are pregnant or extremely vulnerable, and shielding. And then also, if people are going to continue to work from home, which I referenced is probably the majority at this point, we need to think very carefully about our home working policy, risk assessment, equipment, and so on and so forth, insurance. Certainly when I moved my business from the office to home working, in my mind I thought, well, it's all right, it's just for a few weeks and then we'll be back to normal. Well, it's not a few weeks, it's probably going to be a much longer term state. So we need to probably just review our thinking and our plans and our provision for our employees now that it looks like home working is going to be a more permanent fixture. We need to think about, if we are bringing people back from furlough, how do we do that? How do we make sure that we properly end the process as well as the way that we started it? And if there have been changes to terms and conditions, they need looking at as well. And then there's a whole, I'm not really going to go through in much detail, but there's a whole raft of information that's been produced by the government. There's 8 separate guideline documents for different workplace settings around basically making workplaces COVID safe. I would say the 8 documents are pretty much standard, and then there is an overlay of specifics for different settings. But, it covers things like, social distancing, making sure you've done the risk assessment and the requirement for that, putting people into teams and cohorts, staggering start and finish times, and so on and so forth. It's been very well publicised in the media. Just on risk assessments, there's due to be some new guidance published next week, which is being developed by ACAS and the Society for Occupational Health Medicine, which I think at the moment the view is that's the place to go for risk assessment documentation. There is some on the HSE website, but it doesn't appear to have been updated, but I suspect there will be more as time goes on this week. Other things that our clients are telling us is staff going AWOL. So it's obviously very hard if people go AWOL when your only contact with them is via some web platform or phone, and you're not actually seeing them, and they're not required to be present in the workplace. That's becoming an increasing problem, and particularly for the younger generation who, we've probably had experience of this, who, they probably rent a room in a house potentially. So they're living and working in one room and finding challenges also with the impact on mental health and well-being. Mental health and well-being overall is a challenge, and the longer this goes on will increasingly be so. So we have obligations as employers to ensure we are taking as much care and attention as we can to the mental health and well-being of our people. Managing and engaging a remote workforce, again, if we're now looking at a much longer term requirement, we need to be very mindful of the different approaches we need to take when we're managing a remote workforce and keeping them engaged and making sure that they're on the same journey with us. Holiday is a key area that we need to be giving some attention to. So you'll know that there is this 2-year extension for holiday roll forward, but actually that's probably not going to help us in the long term for 2 reasons. One is we need to be giving people time away from their workplace and their 4 walls and their screens, but also we don't want to give ourselves a situation with significant amounts of accrued holiday being there at the end of whatever the end looks like here. And I think they were the main points. So what I've done there is I've just very quickly trotted through a new fact sheet we published yesterday on the next steps for business. So you can find it on our website, and also I'll make sure it's uploaded onto the Pimento portal as well. And there's all sorts of other free information and resources that we've been producing over the last few weeks. And the last thing I'll just signpost you to, if I can pull up my screen and share it with you. which I'm going to try and do. No, I'm going to be challenged as well with sharing screen, so I'll make sure this information goes out later. We're holding two HR advice panels, one on Thursday, one on Friday. The idea being is the expertise in my team is available to answer any questions that we've had coming through to us this week, but also any questions of the participants on that panel. So I'll make sure those details go through as well. And Stephen, I'm happy to answer any immediate questions now if there are any.
Thank you, Zoe Ann. That was very helpful. I've actually shared on the screen just now, we've actually shared your fact sheet with everybody. So they've got,
thank you.
And we'll also attach it to the follow-up email. Your two events later this week are being publicised to the network on an update on all of our events, which will be going out after today's call. And again, for your next week's events, if you let us know, we'll add those to the list. So thank you very much indeed. As ever, very comprehensive and helping us kind of make some sense of what's going on. Things are changing by the moment. A few questions, if I may. I'll unmute Jonathan and unmute Leslie and Naomi and Nicola. Right. So first question up is to Leonard Cheshire, either Naomi or Leslie. What government support are you getting at this time?
We have two government support lines, Stephen. For PPE, we are working with local councils, and they have recently started to direct funds to us for PPE materials, and we are very well stocked. But of course, the amount that they're giving us is not enough to cover our £400,000, going up to 1 million a month. We also have statutory support in running our homes, but that is more on an ongoing basis, given the social element of the care we offer to all our residents. So we have the PPE element, and we have the ongoing statutory support.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, one additional question from earlier on, actually, from Andy Clark. He says, is Leonard Cheshire a member of the NHS Charities Together programme?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thinking obviously about the military connection there with Captain Tom and the monies that he's obviously managed to raise.
Yes.
And also, obviously, given your military heritage, there may be an obvious connection there and something that's worth probably exploring.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Jonathan, I'll come back in a minute, Leslie, because I've got a couple more questions, if I may.
Okay.
For you, Jonathan, what's the ultimate end game for this project? What does success look like?
It's a good question. So, because a number of people have asked me that privately. So, the real end game was to get to the point where we have those events in the museum. So, I see the events running early next year, because I think by the time we get back after lockdown, people will be sick of this virus and won't want to talk about it anymore. But next year, to have a more optimistic lens on the future, to actually talk about the good things that we've seen, I think that's the time to run the events. And we see the shows running for 1 or 2 weeks. And the last day of the show, that's when we'd get these opinion formers, business people into a room and run a workshop, potentially with other Pimentoese, to say, well, we could do this with this particular idea, or this with that particular idea. And then I think it will be a handoff time to run a number of individual projects. And so I think the end game for the project for me will be at that point where we set up a number of projects where stakeholders who are interested in owning those projects run with them. We also want to produce a book towards the end of this of all the works, with all the themes. I think we'll get different themes coming out of this. We'll get themes around communication. We'll get themes around friendship and home working and so on. So we want to put the book into themes, and maybe sell the book as giveaways for anybody that's involved. So I'm sure that Elmwood would want to buy a few of these books and give them to clients as a keepsake, a nice coffee table book. And then any profits would go to some sort of charitable cause. And we haven't decided what that is, but I'm sure Leslie will be saying, oh, well, that could be us. So we'll find a way. Yeah, I can see Naomi smiling as well. So so that's really the end point, is a series of projects, at which point I will get back to my day job, hopefully, or retire to the golf course.
Back to the golf course. That's a good idea. We can go back out now. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for that. Well, quick question for Reality HR. This is from an employee rather than employer. Do I have to go back to work after lockdown? What's my legal position if I'm actually scared of going back into the working environment?
That's a great question. Nicola, do you want to take that one?
Brilliant.
No, I can take the answer.
It is a question we're seeing quite a lot from our clients at the moment, in that where businesses are starting to open up again and finding work for their furloughed employees. Employees are saying, actually, I don't feel comfortable coming back to work. I don't feel safe. It's for the business to carry out those risk assessments, make sure that they are providing a safe workspace for their staff in the best way that they can do that. And if they've exhausted all of that and they are convinced and they can reassure their workforces that it's a safe place to return to, then that's what the employees should be doing. They should be returning to work. If they still feel unable to, then they may be able to request holiday as paid leave, or a further period of unpaid leave. Or if the employers are still furloughing some people for certain situations, then they may be able to extend furlough for some people. But ultimately, if there's work for them to do and it is a very safe place for them to do it with all the normal precautions that are being advised at the moment, then that employee should be returning to work.
Okay, I mean, I suppose the difficulty is employers can actually create COVID-free or COVID-safe environments, but actually the physicality of getting from home to a physical place of work can be a challenge, particularly if they're using transport. And of course, that then leads on to, where does the employer's duty of care extend to? Is it purely in the workspace, or do they have a responsibility to basically cover the journey from home to the office? And if so, God forbid that individual gets COVID, and worse still dies, would they actually be liable for a corporate manslaughter case?
I think that commuting has to be factored into all of the risk assessments. And it's not only health and safety legal obligations, it's about what's right for the future of the business. And if bringing people back to work because you believe your offices are safe, but then everybody becomes infected and sick and absent from work because of their commute, then that not only is that bad for the individuals on a personal level, it's bad for the business in that they no longer have a team to carry out the work. So that has to be factored in. Obviously, the government advice is to avoid public transport wherever possible. So many of our clients, we have clients in construction, and they're allowing their staff to travel into London in private vehicles, and they will cover the cost of mileage and parking so that they can avoid public transport. So it's exploring all of those options to minimise the risk at every possible opportunity.
Okay, I mean, what's going to be interesting over the next few weeks is getting feedback from the network as to what creative solutions they've found in order to be able to get people back into the working environment. So thank you for that. Back, if I may, to a question to Leslie and Naomi. We've spoken about, obviously, the need to open up our black books and find opportunities to introduce corporates that could be, from a brand point of view, great fits for you. And particularly, obviously, you were talking about on-pack promotions and other ideas there. But what about, again, on the personal donation side? Presumably there's somewhere on the website we can go to if we want to make a personal donation.
Yes.
I'll, if you could, after this call, just give that link, that would be fantastic, Leslie. And
Okay.
today wasn't about fleecing people, but I'll take every opportunity to do that on your behalf.
Yes. It's very easy. You can text to donate, or you can go onto the website and make a more substantial donation.
Okay, and final question for you, if I may, and perhaps this one to Naomi, is what changes have you made to your own structure and resource at this time as a charity?
It might be better for Leslie to answer this one. I mean, in terms of furloughing and working from home, we are taking all the precautions that the government has set out, and we're not changing anything at the moment. Is that what you meant, Stephen?
Yeah, I just wonder whether obviously you'd had to cut again your overheads and reduce your cost base in order to be able to kind of get through this period.
Oh, very much so. Yes.
So we've only really implemented following from this week, Stephen, and we had last month we had about 5% of our employees absent, and this month we only have 3.2 employees absent. But we have managed to redeploy a great deal of our people. We had about 200 people who have been redeployed to help, because even in our own fundraising and marketing teams, we had opportunities to have our teams volunteer to work on the care homes, and that's what I mean by redeploying. We as a charity, and Sally-Ann will probably be interested in this, we've just started following this week. Our employees are not just getting the 2.8 from the government. They're being paid their entire salary, even in the following times. So we've taken a very conservative approach to following, which is really reassuring, because a lot of charities don't have. They just don't have that luxury.
So, well, piece of news for you, and thank you everyone for talking, which is that I've had an offer here. Obviously, it's subject to him getting approval from his board, but and I've dropped Chris in it. But Chris, Molly from Proco, who are a Pimento member and one of Britain's leading digital print companies, have been producing, I believe for the government actually, face masks. Is that right, Chris? I think. And they've offered to see whether they could actually help support you and donate some face masks, Leslie, at this time.
Yes, that would be great.
And he's also, I think, working very closely at the moment with Jonathan and coming up with a range of ideas that will hopefully create some monetary opportunities to raise some cash for Jonathan's idea, which could include books, postcards, and all sorts of other things. So plenty of things happening there. And Chris, thank you for your support. Right then, everyone, you've all got to get out to work, I guess. Thank you once again. Really, really interesting discussion, very different from our previous discussions today, and very enlightening and actually inspiring at the same time. So I wish you all a great Wednesday and the rest of the week. We've got, I think, 16 events over the next 7 days. One of the things actually, like Jonathan mentioned at the moment, is fatigue, and I'm very conscious of that. So we will be actually speaking to the membership and getting feedback and getting some idea as to how regular these events should be as we move forward. But for now, we'll be back here next Wednesday. The following week being half term, I think we may well take a break that week and come back the following week with a bunch of new ideas. So have a great one, and thank you once again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.